So you can see heavy pest damage, right? Now I'm just ripping these out, all these plants. I mean, this seems like a terrible waste, but these plants should have been ripped out months ago. Get down in there. The plant should figure itself out. Hey, it's Craig here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I got a big job here. I gotta thin out these kale. So I planted these kale in May, and they've just been growing all summer long. And I should have thinned them in, let's say, the end of June, but I didn't. I just kept putting it off. Oh, I'll do that next week. I'll do that next week. I'll do that next week. And now it's like past the middle of August, and I still haven't done it. So it's time to do it, because if you don't thin your kale, unless you live in some magical place where there's no slugs, flea beetles, etc., no pests, they're going to get mercilessly attacked. They're competing with each other for space, for sunlight, for nutrients, so that weakens the plants. But also each plant, because they're in against each other, it just offers perfect cover for pests to proliferate and grow. And these ones have been attacked by mostly flea beetles, but also slugs and snails. So let me bring you in close and show you what's going on here. So you can see heavy pest damage, right? Everything's just devastated. Although the newer stuff, right, is relatively clean, right? Because with every successive wave of the development of the plant, if it's being attacked by pests, it just starts producing more and more of its own natural pesticides to prevent that damage. But so long as they're tight like this, they're just going to keep getting attacked. So last night I came out and I thinned them, and this is a good spacing, right? For me, this is 2 hand spans. A hand span's about 9 inches, so that's 18 inches. You know, 18 inches, 16 inches, 12-inch minimum. And what I did is I just pulled plants and left, you know, within reasonable spacing, the bigger, thicker, heavier ones, right? So where I had maybe 50 plants, now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 in a garden that's about 12 feet long. And they don't look like much right now. And I pulled off all the foliage that looked compromised. I left some on, but in about a month, I think these will look pretty good. I'll do a follow-up video. So what I want to do, and when I picked these, pulled all the plants out of here, I took some of them, I put them aside, and I planted them over here in this abandoned garlic bed. Right, this bed had garlic. Now I've got kale that I've placed in here. Now, I mean, these kale were just yanked out of the ground and plugged back into the ground over here. So they're going to spend a couple weeks suffering, right, and dying back. But the main plant is still alive, so they should come back. And in a few weeks, they should look okay. And I got to get some mulch going in here and stuff like that. But this is the next stage of it, right? This is a kind of fall crop. People are always talking about fall greens, right? These are fully mature plants with really big, you can see a really big crown, right? These plants that I pulled out of the ground, the crown's about 3/4 of an inch in diameter or 1/2 inch in diameter, right? So these, even though they don't look like much, right? Imagine these plants, when I pulled them, might have had 12 big stalks, and we ripped off the most pest-laden ones, and then they're dying back just, you know, because of the stress of being moved. But the plant should recover, and it should start putting up new foliage and being looking pretty good by the end of September. So let's pull some more plants and let me show you how that works. All right, so I got a number of plants here, and I got one that's bigger than the adjacent ones. So I'm going to pull this one, and this one, and this one. Just put those aside for now. And this one. And I'm pulling a lot of plants, but these plants will not grow well when they're in tight like this. Right, so everything's going to come out. And even the plants that remain, I'm going to let this one stay. But I'm going to tear down this compromised foliage. Right, so I'm left, just throw that over here for now so people can see what I'm doing. This is the plant I'm left with, right? And I'll put some mulch around this. Right, but this is the plant I'm left with. I expect in a few weeks it'll be looking a lot better than that. Right, so now I'm just ripping these out, all these plants. I mean, this seems like a terrible waste, but these plants should have been ripped out months ago, at least a month ago, right? I would say June or beginning of July is when you thin your kale. Okay, so now I've made a space. Now I'm going to examine everything here and see if I can find what one strong plant I'll leave. None of these plants look exceptional. I'd say that one or that one are probably the best. I'll just pull everything else. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, it could be this. A lot of options here. And once you pull the plant, it takes a good couple weeks for it to reestablish. So you want to leave whatever you want to leave, you leave it in the ground. I'm going to leave that one. That one looked the best of most of them. And now I'll just rip down the worst of the foliage because it's kind of done anyway, right? Bring the soil back around the base of the plant. Like that. You can bring it in from this middle part here. Okay, there's another one. Then we just continue the process. And yeah, I could be using this kale somehow. Each one of these plants has a couple of decent leaves. But I got so many other things in my garden that are good right now. I don't really care, right? I'm going to have good kale in a month or so. So I'm not worrying about these ones. Okay, I'm going to pull all of these. These will just go in compost, basically. And one of these has to stay. That's an awfully big space. Awfully big space. I'm reluctant. But I guess it's going to have to be that guy. There's a better plant nearby. Much better plant nearby, but it's too far from the adjacent one. So these other ones got to go. It's all about spacing. All right, gather the soil up around there. Well, remove the crappy foliage and move on. So you see this, I mean, this is something I should have done months ago, and this is not hard, right? This is not a big job. I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. That's a pretty good looking one there. I guess I'll yank this guy and leave that guy. Get rid of this foliage. All this dead foliage is just going to feed slugs, so there's really no point in leaving it around. It'll go in the compost. And you could if you wanted to, but it's just going to feed the things you don't want. So you might as well starve them, in my opinion anyway. That's an awfully big one. It's a shame to pull it, but again, thinning is all about, every plant needs a certain amount of space to grow well. This one's so big and so thick, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave these ones. Oh, there's another good one right next to it, so I'll leave that. You know, sometimes you leave things a bit closer just because you've got a particularly robust looking plant. Also doing a little, weeding as I go. Why not, right? There we go. Remove the bad foliage. Semi-compromised foliage is okay because the plant will pull nutrients out of foliage that's half dead and use that to fuel the rest of the plant. But really, really compromised foliage. It's got no future. Again, I got another big, thick, healthy plant here. I'm reluctant to pull it. So even though it's only about 14 inches away from the adjacent plant, I'm going to leave it because it looks good. Nope. So we're almost halfway done. We're beyond halfway done here. See how quickly this is going. That's an awfully nice looking one. I'm reluctant to pull it. I might plant this somewhere else in the garden. I'll show you how to do that too. Let's do that. So I'm just going to yank this like that and put it there in the middle because they're going to replant it. Okay, 'cause it's just so big and thick. Seems like a waste to waste it. And you can see I'm being very aggressive with the plant. They can take it. Another big one here that can probably get replanted. So I'll put that right there. Don't forget it. It's just in the wrong place, so it has no future. I'll leave this guy. And it's amazing. Procrastination in gardening is just, if I had done this, this did not take long. If I'd done this just a month ago, I'd have such a beautiful, beautiful kale garden, and we'd be eating this kale right now, right, instead of not eating it, right? Because I basically don't have any good kale. Because I planted everything here, and the idea was to thin it, replant some of the thin kale, right? But just thin it and have a very strong, healthy garden right here. That was the plan. But you know what they say, that old John Lennon song, life's what happens when you're busy making other plans. All right, that's done. So that's all thinned out now. Ordinarily, because even though I haven't pulled the plants that are remaining, I've been yanking all kinds of things around them, so I'm sure I've damaged some of the root hairs on them. And ordinarily you'd want to water them after this kind of stress, but because it's the evening, you should never water plants like this in the evening because it really attracts slugs and stuff like this. So tomorrow morning, the sun's going down, it's going to be dark in half an hour. These plants aren't going to be under too much stress, and thankfully this time of year we get a bit of a mist every night anyway, right? So I'm just going to leave them for now. I'll water them tomorrow morning before I go to work. But I can replant some of those other ones, so let me show you how I do that. Really simple process. You filming? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, so I had a potato garden here. I picked all the potatoes, and I planted some beans. But many of the beans got taken out by slugs. So anyway, I just working this out a little bit. I got some room for kale, so why not plant them, right? So you can see they've been bare rooted, right? It means they're gonna suffer for a little while when they're replanted. I'm gonna pull off some of the most compromised of the foliage. But this is a pretty easy process to do. You just put the shovel in. It's almost like tree planting for those that have ever done it. Right? Make a space. You want the plant no deeper than its crown. You don't want to plant it too deep or it can get attacked by pests. Then you compact the soil around the plant. These I will water even though it's evening. Not a good time to water just because they're so stressed by what I've just done. Right, I'll plant another one here. Maybe this guy. Again, I remove the most compromised foliage. I leave some of the foliage, even if it's not perfect, it's okay. Get that down in there. I'm not spreading out the roots perfectly. The plant should figure itself out. Right. Back the soil around. Let's do one more. Right here. Rock down there somewhere. Let me just scoop that out. Just saw a potato there somewhere. You can tell we had potatoes. Yeah, that's good enough. Look how stripped that is. Look at that. Nothing there. Strip right down. That's slug damage for sure. You can see how I removed so much of that plant. But this is the part of the plant that matters here. Right? That's the plant. Right? This, in a sense, this is the real plant. This is the top part, the part that gathers energy. But this is where all the energy and the life is stored in the plant. Right? So there's still a lot of plant, even though it looks like I've destroyed it. So I just put that in. It'll send up new foliage. These will look terrible for a week or so. And most of the foliage that's still on the plant right now will be lost. But that's okay. It'll recover. Again, I'll do a follow-up video in, end of September, maybe early October, to show you where these are. So that didn't take long, and thankfully I've got a handy cameraman here making some pretty good footage. We've thinned out the kale, we've replanted some of them. My initial plan was to start a bunch of kale here, and then once the garlic's pulled in my garlic beds, take the ones I've pulled and put them in 2 of the other garlic beds, so to turn 1 bed of kale into 3 beds of kale. Really, that's too much kale. You can only do, like, it's a lot of kale to have to process and store in your freezer. 2 beds is a reasonable number. 3 beds is, really overperforming. And I could have done it, but I think I've already planted, I've had another spare garlic bed over there and another spare garlic bed over there. I've already replanted stuff in the other spare garlic bed, so I only really had 1 space to plant them. So I'm going to turn 1 bed of kale into 2 beds of kale, and in about a day or 2 I'll get another mulch on this, and it should be looking good in about a month or so, and I'll do a follow-up. Alright, so I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Check out my Substack page, maritimegardening.substack.com. Until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.